Kalev Ben David is anchor from I-24 News based in Israel. Ashok Sajjanar is former Indian diplomat. Max Abrahams is a global security analyst. Kalev, let me begin with you. It was anticipated even 7 days ago that the tide will turn, that the overall sentiment will turn against Israel the moment Israel starts its counter-offensive. Do you sense that has already happened? And in that process, the major question is that the burden of saving civilian lives on the Gazan side is being put on Israel. You are the more powerful of the two sides, so maybe that burden will fall on you. What will you have to say about that?
Well, look, first of all, in part, I agree some of the tide is turning. I think Israel's going to try to make the case, which I will remind your viewers, that in the battle conducted against Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, ISIS, over an extended period primarily by the United States and some of his NATO allies in those countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of civilians lost their lives in that extended campaign against both Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And while certainly individual instances of civilians being killed were criticized, even condemned, nobody put a timetable on the United States and the NATO allies to do it. Nobody said it was illegitimate, that their campaign was illegitimate, even though it did cause civilian casualties. And I think Israel and its supporters in the coming days and weeks is going to try to make that case to the world. Unfortunately, as you say, Israel is held to a different standard. Its supporters would say a hypocritical standard by much of the world to deny it that latitude to carry out the campaign. Now, as Israel's taken steps, it's opened this humanitarian corridor. It's informed the civilians in the northern part of Gaza to flee to the south. It's tried to have more pinpoint bombing at this. Remember, if Israel just to open up with artillery on Gaza City, already we would have seen hundreds of thousands killed. So Israel is trying to show restraint, but at the end of the day, its goals are not only to take out the Hamas leadership, free its hostages, but basically to demilitarize Hamas. And that will be a costly campaign on both sides, including civilian casualties. And it will take some time. Okay. And yes, it's going to come under immense geopolitical pressure.
All right. Let me also go across to Max Abrahams. Max, commentators like yourself and people like yourself who've studied how terror groups function have, of course, commented on how Hamas is, no difference to a terror group like ISIS. Maybe the world is finally coming to that realization. But also about how they do use civilian areas and the civilian population as shields. And they've done that for years. On top of that, what I asked earlier as well, what's shocking is actually nobody is pressurizing Hamas to release those hostages. If there was to be a move to peace or to ceasefire, that would be the way to achieve it. But even that burden is not on Hamas. The entire burden is being put on Israel.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, obviously, the seizure of 199 hostages, that's the number that's being reported, puts a lot of coercive pressure and fear into the countries from which those hostages, correspond. Obviously, most of them are Israeli. However, I will also say that I believe that all of these hostages is somewhat problematic for Hamas as well. What exactly is Hamas going to do with these hostages? It doesn't seem like it knows how to negotiate anything. And yet, if it kills the hostages, that doesn't benefit Hamas either. There's a widespread misperception, including among academics, that more and more tactical extremeness, if you will, favors the group, favors the perpetrator. But I have a large amount of research on this, including a book. And what I find is that when militant groups escalate in terms of their tactical extremeness, when they go the ISIS route, they get the ISIS treatment. It makes it harder for supporters around the world to give money to back groups that are seen as just universally disgusting. It will strengthen Israeli resolve to crush the perpetrators. So
Okay.
this hostage situation is interesting and it cuts both ways. I don't see it as helping Hamas. I think it's actually going to be an additional liability for the organization.
No, absolutely. I in no way wanted to suggest it helps Hamas. In fact, my question was, is the commentators who are pro-Palestine cause, and it's okay, you can be for the cause of a Palestinian state, why are they not urging that Hamas should release these hostages if they care so much for the civilian life? Because it's a reality that hostages have been taken. And that's the inequality in the commentary that is taking place, where all of the burden to be conscientious is being put on Israel and nothing on Hamas, while people continue to defend them as well.